Good evening, everyone, and welcome once again to Infinite Talk. And today we have Malvern House with us. I know you all know Malvern House. You know, most of you know Ashley as well, but only with foundation programs and year one with University of East London. So there is a lot more what Malvern House has to offer. And so we have Ashley with us, who is the Director of International Recruitment today. We have David with us, who is the Deputy Head Global Sales and Marketing. And they will be giving us the presentation, guiding us on the Malvern House NCUK program, the University of Chichester, and what more they have to offer in the coming future. So up to you, David, to share the screen, and we are looking forward to it. Thank you.
Would you like to say a few words, Ashley, whilst I prepare this?
Yeah, certainly. So hello, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today. And of course, thank you so much to Infinite Opportunities Abroad for hosting us. My name is Ashley Veris, and exactly as Gaurav introduced, I am the Director of Student Recruitment at Malvern International. You will potentially know me, and I'm sure I've met many of you in your offices, probably talking about the University of East London's International Study Centre. But today we're really going to talk not about the University of East London, we're going to talk about our other offerings. And so the first one that we wanted to talk about was our NCUK International Foundation Year Programme. So we have got a very fortunate, we're in a very fortunate position, and we've got a really great opportunity for students to come and join us to study an international foundation year at our central London King's Cross premises, where they could study a one-year foundation before applying to progress to a whole range of universities, not just in the UK, but also globally. So for those of you we've worked together before, you know who we are. We pride ourselves on being very responsive. We're very friendly and approachable, but we also like to work really closely with our partners to make sure that you have got the help, the support, and all of the answers that you need to many of the student questions that you get on a day-to-day basis. And believe me, there's no question that is too small for us to be able to answer. David, have I missed anything in that intro?
Yeah, I just want to check you can see the screen that I'm sharing now, right?
I can.
Yes. Great, fantastic. The other thing I would mention is I think some of the people we've started working with recently, you know, we're a new brand name to them, but we've existed in the market a long time. Malvern's kind of history and our heritage, you know, goes back to the 1980s. We've been going for kind of, you know, nearly 40 years now. That even if you're new to working with us, we're not new to working with agents. We're not new to working with students, and the depth of experience and the kind of the care that we have and the knowledge that we have, it runs quite deeply. So kind of if you place a student to come and study with us, we've got the experience, and yeah, we're able to kind of make sure those students get the achievement that they're looking for.
And for those of you who want to know a little bit more about what we do as a wider company, so Malvern International is our parent company. Within our parent company, we run different divisions. So we run our university pathways and higher education section, where of course we look after the University of East London, our NCUK program that we're speaking about now. And also we have a recruitment partnership for direct recruitment with the University of Chichester. We also have some English language schools as well within our portfolio, one of them in Manchester, where I actually am sat today, one in London, and one in Brighton. And so all in all, as David rightly mentioned, we've recruited and helped about 50,000 students study in the UK since we were founded. We've had about 120 different nationalities in total across all of our programs and program areas. But what we really want to talk to you today about is the NCUK program. So David, do you want to just tell them a little bit about why a student might study with NCUK?
Yeah, great. So for those of you who are new to our NCUK program, the way that I usually describe it to people is that historically, a long time ago, a group of northern universities in the UK came together and said, we want to increase the number of students studying with us. And at that time, there weren't a lot of foundation years available. Pathway was quite a new area. And so these universities came together, formed a group called the Northern Consortium UK. And they said, let's make a curriculum that students can study, and we'll know that those students are high quality students. We know that the quality of their education We'll run the exams. It will be our curriculum. We'll do the quality control for it, and we'll be able to recruit students into our great universities that we understand their background and their learning history. So NCUK, a large group of universities came together to form this curriculum with all their experience, all their knowledge, all of their connections. And you can see the current group of NCUK universities on the screen now. So it's really expanded past the group of northern universities that it originated with. And there's lots of different places for students to go now. So we get quite a different pull of students looking for different things for our programs. Because we're based in London, we see students that are looking for London options. So they're often looking for Queen Mary. Kingston is a really popular one for our students, and Brunel. We also get those students that are looking for the highly ranked universities. They're looking for universities like Manchester, Leeds, Sheffield, Queen Mary, the Russell Group options where they can kind of, go on to have a selection of highly ranked universities. And then we also see students that are kind of looking for budget options as well. So we're thinking about universities here like Bradford, Huddersfield, where there's different price points that are, differently competitive for them as well. And one of the nice things is, if you're a student coming onto the course, you don't quite know what you want for the future, you don't quite know where you'll be, you don't quite know what's the maximum you can reach for. When students enter this program, they can still reach for those highly ranked universities. And if they can achieve the grades, fantastic, they'll get there. They'll be able to go and study there. But if they're kind of fall a little bit short of their ideal, there are still lots of fantastic universities students can go on to study at.
The key thing, I think, is no matter what program your student wants to study, there's almost always certainly an option and a way for us to get that student to that program. There are a couple of exceptions. We do not offer a foundation at the moment that leads to medicine. So that is one thing we do not offer, but otherwise there's about 3,000 different degree progressions a student can reach from the NCUK Foundation program. And just like David said, it's all about having a range of options for students. So the key thing here is that this foundation provides a much more cost-effective way for a student to do a foundation that gives them choice. And it gives them choice to go to a range of universities with not just reputation and ranking at the heart of it, but also good program specialisms, lots of different location. And also, as you know, when you're counseling students, sometimes you just want to have a solution that something that's easy to counsel students on. And it's very easy to counsel students on NCUK because it's a one-size-fits-all option, which means you don't need to know all of the program information for every single university that NCUK works with. You just need to know this information we're going to tell you about NCUK, and we take care of the rest. So everything that happens after that, we take care of. We will help your student to apply to the main university they want to go to and to make sure that they get to the correct destination for them. So it's a really stress-free option for you when you're counseling students, because there's nothing worse than a student coming in. You have to look at the options. You have to remember all the unique selling points for everything. You don't need to do that with NCUK. It's very straightforward, central London location. It's an affordable foundation program for students to take, and it gives them progression to a whole range of universities in the UK and also globally.
Yeah.
And so in terms of what foundation we offer, and how it works. So what I would say is you need to think about this foundation, and I'm sure you're familiar from counseling, thousands and thousands of students. This foundation is a one-year program. It involves 3 academic modules plus an English for academic purposes module. Now, to come onto this program, students will need to have a UKVI CELT. So they will need some kind of UKVI CELT, whether that be a UKVI IELTS or UKVI PTE. And they can come onto our program where they study these 3 academic modules in streams that include business management, accounting and finance, and humanities and social sciences. These streams then fork out and allow students to progress to, as I said, about 3,000 different options. What makes this foundation a really good idea for students? Lots of very, very, very small class sizes. So small class sizes, they have about 24 hours of tuition per week. They have a personal tutor. They're really well supported. But more importantly, the reason why they have the number of hours of tuition they have is because students don't particularly perform well if they have to do tons and tons of homework. So what we try to do is make sure that they build in all of the learning they need to do within the actual scheduled timetable. So that way it gives students a good home life balance with school balance and study balance, and it gives them the time they need to be able to really compartmentalize their studies and their personal life.
Here's a couple of the different modules that students will study from each unit. And I think the best way to understand the modules that they'll be studying here is each one of them is kind of equivalent to an A level in the UK. So if the student is on, say, business management, they will study a business studies module, an economics module, and then either mathematics for business or international relations. And the difficulty of each of these and the attainment of each of these you can consider as being equivalent to an A level. So it's quite a lot of study, but it's well recognized by the university. And when students are looking to move on, there are lots of different courses that they can go to. So Ashley's mentioned over 3,000 different courses at all the different universities. And students can get into kind of not just courses on business management, but if a student wanted to go on to study, say, politics, that would fall under humanities and social science. Or if they want to move on to economics, again, they could go from business and management to this. Anything where there's a prerequisite of the equivalent of A levels. So if they wanted to go on to, say, chemical engineering, this might not be the right fit for them, but there's lots of different programs students can study that are just looking for a general background in an experience level of student, and students can apply to any of those. So there is really a wide portfolio of different places students can go. You've even had students who have started this program who are going on to, say, computer science or something like that. Those are valid progressions that students can go on to.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing as well is it's really important to mention that in this program, there's lots of student support. So if the student is struggling with anything, the idea is that their tutor is available to be able to help them through. So they have a general course set up where they have lots of group tutorial sessions or small workshop style learning. So what that means is they're not in classrooms with huge numbers of other students. We know, well, I know from obviously visiting many offices across India, that often students are pretty shy. They don't necessarily want to ask a huge amount of questions. They're very smart, very switched on, but they don't want to put their hand up and say that they don't understand something. They don't need to in this format of learning, because they have lots of tutorial sessions where they can have that one-to-one workshop style conversation. And of course, we help them with their university applications. We help them with anything they need. If it's things to do with like learning how to write assignments or anything language-based, there's help for that too.
Because as we mentioned earlier, historically, Malvern's been connected with language schools. One of the things you'll often see with language schools is that they incorporate activities for students that want to get to know each other. And that's kind of sense of community that we have in our schools has really applied to our pathway students as well. So you'll often see them kind of hanging out together, taking part in events, kind of really building a community. And I think it's every time I've been in the centre, it's really nice to see the kind of the groups of students getting on and, you know, knowing their teachers and having a rapport and getting involved in these activities and going to speak to people about their university options, going to university open days together, and that kind of sense of growth and community. And I think it's just a really heartwarming thing you see with our students.
Absolutely. And so the NCUK application process. So the key thing is you help counsel your students to place them on the foundation. They come on board to do their foundation with us, and then we help them to place their university application following that. Your student may come back to you with regards to visa support during that kind of process, but generally the university application itself happens while they're doing their foundation. So there's no additional workload from your side. And of course, what we do is we encourage the student to go back to their educational consultant to help them with anything visa related. So that kind of puts the power back with you to be able to help them with that next step. So some key information, of course, we've got start dates in September for this program and also in January. We run those 3 programs. In terms of costs, you're looking at just over 16,000, so 16,650 pounds, and you've got scholarships. We're actually offering scholarships of about 3,000 pounds to students for NCUK at the moment. So it says up to 2,000, but it's actually 3. In terms of deadlines, really important for you, because I know that you've got students that you're looking to place now. You might have some last minute applications. You have things like that. They can place those now. We will accept applications up until August. for this particular program. We expect students to be in a place where they're making their kind of full deposit payments, full tuition fee payments before their CAS before their CAS is released. So it's quite important that you know that it's full tuition fees before CAS release.
The other thing I just would talk about here is about the application process. That, as you see, we've got kind of quite a flexible, quite a late deadline there. And we are very responsive, as Ashley said at the beginning, to working with agents, getting fast offers out. Last year, we had an applicant, an agent who I know quite well, rang me up, and it was late August, and the university where the student should have been studying had fallen through. There was some problem. I think maybe they'd run out of CAS, and the agent had a crying student in their office who was just kind of devastated that their life had tumbled. And the agent sent me over the student's documents. We prioritized it, and I think got an offer back to that student and that agent within an hour. And although they'd applied kind of late August, that student was still able to get their application in. They decided they wanted to accept and were able to make the course online in September and kind of still able to progress on to the university. I think that they've got good records of where they're going to be going this year. So we are very responsive. And if you ever have anything where it's high priority, get in contact with us, let us know. We can process stuff very quickly where required. And we really want to do everything we can to support you in getting those kind of high priority offers out when needed.
So really important. So what's the application process? Let's just talk through this with you now. So it's really, really easy. We try to make things as simple as possible. You submit the student application form and supporting documents. That comes through, and it goes through a pre-screening process where the student gets checked over to make sure that they might receive a quick phone call just to check that they understand what program they've applied for, and also, you know, they know how they're going to fund their studies. Then after that, it goes through to the admissions team, and the admissions team issues the offer. It's kind of that simple. And we try to keep things as simple as possible for you.
Yeah. The last thing.
Oh, sorry, Dave. I was getting excited about talking about that, but you go right ahead, Dave. If you want to talk about the NCUK guarantee, I don't mind. I don't mind sharing.
I was just going to talk about the guarantee because I know it's one of those common questions that students get, that they're like, oh, but what if I don't get the grades I need? What am I going to do? Like, I'm me. And I think the guarantee is something that helps really assure those students that as long as students get 3 C's in their program and at least a C in their English module, we guarantee we'll be able to find them a place to study in the UK. So students can kind of, as long as they're getting 3 C's, we know we will be able to have some offers for them to choose from.
So really important thing for you to know, your student does not need to resit an IELTS after they complete their foundation. They take the English grade from within the foundation. There's no need for them to resit any kind of other additional English language test. And also, we have a study schedule for students that we try to keep as student-friendly as possible, is what I would say. So there's lots of help, lots of support there for them to be able to do that. In terms of entry requirements, so let's talk about entry requirements and let's talk about accommodation. So in terms of accommodation, I mean, to be honest, Infinite Opportunities, you guys will help with accommodation sourcing for students anyways. But there's lots of options for accommodation available in and around the center for a whole range of different price points. Everything from extremely luxurious accommodation that can be very pricey through to homestay, but also just generally Infinite Opportunities will help with accommodation options. So I don't think we have any worries on that side. And in terms of entry requirements for this program, so basically we're looking for students to have completed their standard 12 qualification. If they've completed their standard 12, so there's 2 options. One is students have completed their standard 12. If they've got their standard 12, we'd be looking for a 40% in their standard 12. So we want the student basically to have passed their standard 12 qualification to be able to get onto the NCUK program. But it's worth noting the student has to have 40% in maths. So that's an important one. If they don't have mathematics, they need to have a maths related subject. So it could be statistics, it could be accounting, it could be economics, it could be physics. any of those will count as a mass qualification. They need to have 40%. But otherwise, that's it. If the student wants to come from your 11th grade, because maybe they don't want to do standard 12 examinations, they can do that. They just need to have a slightly higher grade. They need to have 65% in their year 11, basically. And for majority of students, we're looking again for slightly higher mathematics grades. So they're looking for around 60%, 65% in maths, 65% in maths. But the key thing is, if you have a student who's a standard 12, they want to get to a UK university, they're looking for options, 40% average in standard 12. To be honest, I don't think any of your students have below 40% in their standard 12. So that should make a really easy option for you.
And for most universities, they care deeply about the foundation grades in terms of, students they'll accept. So you might have students that have big aspirational universities they want to go to. And this is a great way for, even if they haven't got the grades that they wanted in their standard 12, but still want to go to highly ranked universities. This is a great another roll of the dice for them to really fully commit themselves, get the best possible grades and go to the best possible university.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
Ashley,
absolutely.
can you please clarify on English requirement as well in terms of IELTS and PTE?
Yes, yeah, of course we can. So just to give you some understanding, so Dave, if we just skip to the next slide, if that's possible, because I think we've covered all of this information. In terms of what they need for IELTS and PTE, so we're looking for an IELTS of 5.0 with no subtest below 4.5 for our general entry for September. In terms of PTE, let me find that.
I think it's 36, actually.
36. Yes, that's absolutely right. So 36 in terms of PTE, which again should be easy peasy for your students. I can't imagine that there's students really with an English grade lower than 36. But yeah, that's generally what we're looking for on that front.
Yeah. So actually, before we move on to University of Chichester, so there are a few questions what I've got from the partners who are attending the event. So the very first thing is, what gap do you accept? So if a student has done 12th standard in the year 2020,
so
and he is been doing some diploma programs or something or that. So what exactly you look at?
So we accept. Good question. So we accept a 3-year gap with no issues.
Okay.
If you have a gap that's more than 3 years and up to 5 years for foundation, we would look at that on a case-by-case basis, but up to 3 years is no problem in terms of study gap. And if they've been doing a diploma or anything like that, it's of course the study gap only comes into account when they finish their diploma, between the gap between the diploma and the program they're applying for.
Right. And nowadays the biggest problem of what the students are facing or our partners are facing is to get timely offer letters from the universities they are promoting. Because what we can foresee, the number of students who are looking forward to study in the UK, the universities do not have that kind of resources to issue offer letters on time, and which is actually creating a panic situation in between the students. They might end up missing the September intake. So can you please clarify on the timeline for issuing the offer letter once you receive the application?
Yeah, so what I would say is this: there's only one thing that delays an offer letter to go out, and that's the pre-screening call. So as long as the student picks up the phone when they receive a pre-screening call or responds to the WhatsApp that they get sent, they will basically, if the pre-screening call happened now, your student would have the offer this afternoon. So there's nothing to stop that from happening as long as the student picks up the pre-screening call. So that would be my number one bit of advice.
Yeah, and I'm pretty confident, Ashley, if this happens, everyone here can increase their targets by 30% for the September intake. So this is a great opportunity. You get offer letters on time, but please make sure that all your students are attending the pre-screening call when it's coming from Malvern House.
So really important, please make sure and ask any counselors who are speaking to students or I should say compliance staff that are filling out the applications. Just make sure that the student's telephone number is correct, because oftentimes the telephone number is not correct. Dave, you're still sharing your screen.
Oh, sorry.
So the key thing here is that your students need to make sure that telephone number is correct, and preferably that they have got WhatsApp. Dave, you're doing it again.
Yeah, I know. I've shared the wrong thing. Just trying to mute it. Sorry.
So yes, so that's the advice I would give there. Importantly though, if you've got students who you're placing applications for NCUK and they are urgent for you, just reach out to either David or myself. We will nudge that student through the admissions process as quickly as possible.
That's
No
perfect.
problem. Like, we are contactable, and we are absolutely committed to make sure that your students get the experience they need to be able to study with us.
Perfect. And actually, when a group of people, group of agencies from India met you in UK on a fam trip, so at that time there was something, a student doing International Foundation NCUK in London, and they also have an option to proceed to global universities. So they can either choose the top ranked universities in UK, and there are options for them to choose UK, Canada, and Australia as well for their bachelor's. So can you please clarify how NCUK works on different countries' progressions?
Yeah, absolutely. So we offer that as standard. So our students that study with us within the NCUK group of universities, David showed you a slide earlier with UK-based NCUK universities, but actually there's a whole range of NCUK universities that are outside the UK. So that includes study options in Canada, in the US, in Australia, and in New Zealand. Student comes onto the foundation with us, and they can progress to any of those universities. It's absolutely not an issue if the student wants to do the foundation with us and then go to Canada, or do you want to do the foundation with us and then go to Australia. In fact, it's pretty common that students want to look to change countries, especially because we know that there's different reasons why students choose their study country where they want to go next. And sometimes they think they may want to come to the UK and stay in the UK, and vast majority of students that come to study with us do that. But some students want to have the option of going elsewhere, and we do that too.
Right. And actually, there's a question on Q&A. So does NCUK offers any program for master's degree as well? Or is some pre-masters or extended masters?
No, good question. So the NCUK program we have is only foundation level. We don't offer anything at master's level at the moment. In future, we may do, but at the moment, only foundation.
Right. So Neha, as Ashley said, it's only foundation for undergrad students, nothing at present for masters. But we have a university for you. You have to wait for some time. We'll get back to you. There is another question from Prince. Is the PT is 36? Yes, Prince, the PT we require 36. It has to be UKBI. Even the IELTS, what we're looking at, be UKBI IELTS. The good part is, even if you have a student enrolling today and do not have an English language qualification, you can register the student for PT straight away, and the result comes in 4 working days. And 36 is something which I think everyone can achieve if they're looking forward to study abroad. So this is the, So actually, there's a question from Priyanka. How many universities we have in UK where the student progress on? So what number of universities we have?
There's about 30 of them in the UK that a student can progress to from the NCUK program, plus the global universities that we spoke about.
Right, great. So there is a question from Viren, any hurdles in CAS? So Viren, the process is very simple. Once you send the application, there is a pre-screen call, student gets unconditional offer. Student has to pay full year deposit. The tuition fees is 16,700. with a scholarship of 3,000, which comes around 13,500 or 700. Once the student pays the full tuition fees, and Malvern House will issue a CAS for student to go proceed further and study at their Central London campus.
Mm-hmm.
If I can just, I wouldn't describe it as a hurdle, but one place I've seen some students make a needless mistake is just think about your answers ahead of the pre-screening, because we've previously had to reject students where they say, oh yeah, my goal is permanently to live in the UK after my foundation degree, or other kind of similar answers. So just make sure you work with your students to think about the kind of things that might get asked in the pre-interview, the sections, and just avoid any kind of common mistakes that students might make there.
Yeah, but from our end, David, just to clarify, once the student will pay the tuition fees, it's for all the partners here. So there will be a pre-CAS interview, which is not official from Malvern House, but our team at Infinite will be doing that interview to make sure the student knows everything and the progression and everything. So that will be a part from our team at Delhi office. So we'll be
Perfect.
going for that, but there is no interview from Malvern House to get the CAS coming in.
So David's talking about the pre-screening call before they get their offer. So before you get an offer, the student will receive a quick call. They're checking 4 things. One, can the student understand and speak English? First one, which it won't be an issue. Second thing is, does the student know what course they have applied for, and ultimately, what degree do they want to study? It doesn't matter what university, they just want to know what degree type. They also want to know how the student's going to fund their studies. So if they're going to get a bank loan, for example, to study to pay for their tuition fees or whatever it is, they just want to be able to check that. And the 4th thing is they just want to make sure that the student doesn't have any previous visa refusals. So there's 4 quick things that they are checking. And then during the process, like you said, they will go through kind of a mock screening interview and things like that. They'll go through their compliance checks and compliance interviews, and then they will, of course, receive their CAS, just like has been mentioned.
Right. Actually, another question is, which is a tricky one for you. Can student pay 70% of the deposit to get the CAS?
Generally, no. Generally, it's full deposit fees to get CAS. So there's not a huge amount of flexibility in that.
So, Nishchaji, the student has to pay the full deposit after scholarship because it's a very niche program and which leads to pathways to the top ranked universities. So the student has to pay the full deposit. So there is another question from Aman. So can a student move to Canada? Because actually what happens, when a student is applying directly to Canada from India, so they look at 60% or 70% in their 12th education. And student who has scored less percentage in 12th are not able to move to Canada or study in Canada. So if they do NCUK program for 1 year, are they eligible to move to Canada on the same program?
So the Canadian university partners with NCUK look at the foundation grades. So basically it's based on their performance in their foundation, not their performance in their 12th.
Right. So Aman, what exactly happens when a student is studying NCUK with Malvern House? So he needs to study well and he needs to score good percentage or good grades for foundation in order to proceed further with the Canadian universities. And obviously the chance is there for the student to proceed either to Canada, Australia, New Zealand, or stay back in UK on progression. Ashley, do you have nursing foundation as well?
That's a very good question. We get asked that a lot, actually. We do have a science and engineering foundation that does have the potential to progress to nursing, but we are not running it in September. So it will not run in September, could run in January, but not for September intake, no.
Right. So for September, we do not have foundation in nursing, but we have for January intake. That's what you said?
That's the plan, yeah.
Okay, so we are coming, but Priyanka, I think this is a great news for you and for all of us, because there are a lot of students who wants to get into nursing as it is highly demand across the globe. And so NCUK Malvern House will be coming up with a foundation in nursing for the January intake. And so we can start applications once we hear back from Ashley. Another question from Falak. A student with 2 years diploma after 10th, is he eligible? So a student has done 10th standard and has done 2 years of diploma.
So good question. So if a student's done 10th standard plus a diploma of 2 years, they are considered on a case-by-case basis. They don't meet the standard entry requirements for NCUK, but generally, yes, they are accepted.
So Falak, you can send us the application and then it will be decided by the assessment team at NCUK at Malvern House. And hopefully, I think there should not be a problem, but you can send us the one application and we'll let you know in a couple of days. How does that go? So, what is the minimum percent? Okay, so there is a question from Ravinder. What is the minimum percentage required in grade 12? So Ravinder, we need 40%. So what we look at is pass 12th standard for a student to move on to NCUK program. Okay, if a student wants to go to Canada after NCUK, so we have a college or university. So Priyanka, it is all university pathways, if I'm not wrong, Ashley, for
That's
Canada.
correct.
Yeah, so there is no college pathway available. So after NCUK, it is all university, Canadian universities and the top ranked universities which are offering pathways to NCUK students. Can we apply for, so the question from Taranpreet Kaur, can we apply the applications for September intake now? with 6, not less than 5 as the requirement. So Taran, we are open for September intake, and I think Malvern House is the only provider which will be accepting applications till August to make sure none of the students left behind their dreams. So, and we are open for September. The only thing what we look at is UKVIs. So even if a student has got 6.5, but it is not UKVI, I think we will not be able to process because that's a UKVI guidelines. So we look at UKVIs, which is 5, not less than 4.5. So anything above 5, not less than 4.5, UKVI is good for us. Requirements for nursing. Priyanka, I think we need a couple of months more to get back to you with the requirement of nursing foundation, but we will surely get this done now. Ashley, another question: what is the eligibility criteria? How much percentage student required enrolled in the foundation program? Again, the same thing, Muskan, we have already clarified. So it's 40% in 12th standard. And if a student has not done 12th, has done 11th, so we look at 65% in 11th and 65% in maths as well. The English requirements remains the same, 5, not less than 4.5 UKVI, PTE UKVI 36, not less than 36. Are the student required to sit for credibility interview? Ashley, can you please go on to this question?
So there is a credibility interview process before the student gets their CAS, but it's really designed to give students the opportunity to talk about what they want to do next. We try to make it as stress-free as possible for students, is what I would say there. But they do need to be prepared for the fact that they need to be able to talk about what university they want to go to after they finish their NCUK in an ideal world, and they need to be able to talk about what course they want to study and what their career projections are.
We know that you guys will help support them with that, and we'll give them a mock and kind of give them advice and support, and we want students to pass that. So we're all about making sure they have all the support and help they need.
Right. Actually, there's a very good question from Khushi. So once the student completes NCUK diploma, so what exactly the universities look at in terms of giving admission to the students on their bachelor's year 1 entry?
They just look at the results from their foundation. So they look at their foundation results, which means they look at the 3 academic grades from their academic modules, plus they look at the English grade that they get as part of their foundation. That's it. Generally, they do not look at anything from before that time. So it's a great option if students.
So even if a university has a requirement of 6 overall, not less than 5.5 in IELTS, but if a student has done NCUK diploma, so there is no need for the student to go for IELTS again, yeah?
That's correct.
Right.
So they will look at the EAP grade,
okay,
and an EAP grade of B is equivalent to a 6.0.
Right. So wherein, yes, PT is acceptable, we need UKVI PT with 36 in PTE. Another question for you, Ashley: if a student has done diploma and 12th from NIOS, so can we accept the student? So if it's an open board learning,
yeah, we accept open board.
So we can accept. But Aman, we do not have any pathway program, so we do not offer 3rd year entry. So, but if a student has done NIOS, we can accept them on international foundation. There is no problem at all. Another question:
right.
Could you please elaborate how foundation program is going to work for nursing aspirants? On you, Ashley.
Yeah, so we don't currently offer a pathway that runs to nursing, but in January we hope to. They would have to do a science pathway. So that means that they would do 3 modules. Biology would be one of them, chemistry another, and then the third one will probably be mathematics or something related to mathematics. Those 3 will be combined to be able to progress into nursing, but we do not offer it for September.
Right.
So I think maybe we have a follow-up session when we start running the science foundation.
I'd say if you've got a large number of students interested in that now, you can start sending in January applications, and we'll be able to look at that and kind of, give some advice there.
Right. So again, there is a question from Priya about gap. So Priya, we look at 3 years gap, so there is no problem. So if a student has done 12th standard in 2020, we are happy to accept the student for international foundation. If the gap is more than 3 years, then we'll look at case-to-case basis, but 3 years is no problem at all.
Correct.
So
fabulous. Should we talk about Chichester, or do we want to answer a few more NCUK questions?
We are about to finish, so then we move on to, or if you want to move ahead, then we can proceed on the questions later on.
No, we'll take the
Yeah.
last of the NCUK questions now.
No, it's all right, because I think they might be waiting for Chichester
Quite-
as well, because
quite a
then
few,
we are
yeah.
always here to answer them. But before we move on, I think there are a lot of questions left, and we need to talk about University of Chichester, but we'll come back to you on these questions after talking about Chichester. And otherwise, team at Infinite Group is here to support you with all your queries and questions here. So David, please, can we move ahead with University of Chichester?
Great, everybody. So just wanted to talk to you about a really exciting new university that we've started working with that I'm sure you'll be really excited to be able to promote. This university, the University of Chichester, is a beautiful campus located on the south coast, and it's steps away from the seaside, one of the campuses. It's based over two campuses, one at Chichester and the other one at Bognor Regis. And this is basically a university that is about 7,000 students in total. And it has got a really lovely, vibrant community feeling to it. I think Gaurav would agree with that. The facilities are absolutely gorgeous. The university staff are lovely people. It's just a really, really nice place for your students to be able to study. We offer not pathway because we don't run an international study center at University of Chichester, but what we do offer is undergraduate and postgraduate direct opportunities for students on a whole range of different programs. Dave?
Yeah, sorry, I've moved on the wrong screen here. Oh, yeah.
So as I said, really vibrant community. They teach in very small class sizes, huge amount of student teacher support. They've got two different campuses and both locations are absolutely stunning. And what makes them pretty unique is that their facilities and the way of life of their students is just so relaxed. They've got, I mean, I think it was pretty surprising, like students are just really chilled out. They do everything possible to make life as stress-free as possible for students.
Yeah, it's a lovely part of the world. And the students we've met whenever we've been on campus have been really positive and vibrant about their experience. The university also has lots of connections with industry to give students practical, hands-on, study style and engaging with the local community. So lots of accreditations, whether it's ACCA exam, CIM, Chartered Institute, lots of connections with real life accreditation companies for practical hands-on experience. There's also lots of real world tie-ups. So I was speaking to some of the staff running the engineering program at the university, and they said they have degree apprenticeships come in from, I think it's Rolls-Royce and from Boeing, who are coming in for kind of actual in-class practical degrees. And the students get a real lot of value out of studying alongside actual professional people who are doing this in their industry and being able to share that background and experience, and staff coming from those industries and being able to find great placements from local businesses, local communities. So Ashley mentioned the locations earlier. You can see them on the screen here. Beautiful South Coast locations.
Yeah, Chichester itself is, if you closed your eyes and imagined what England should be like, that is exactly what Chichester looks like. It is a beautiful 900-year-old city. It's got some of the most beautiful architecture you've ever seen. It's a huge, popular, thriving city center with lots of shops, restaurants, lots for students to do. It's also a huge tourist hub within the UK, which means that there's lots of part-time work available for students. So if you've got students that are looking to work part-time during their studies or full-time during their summer period, there's lots of student work available. In fact, it's one of the top tourist destinations in the UK. There's also lots of access to different airports. So students that are flying in typically would fly into Gatwick, and then they can quickly get on the train from Gatwick to go to Chichester. So nice and easy from that side too. And their Bognor Regis campus is actually located on the seaside. It's about 1,000 steps away from an award-winning beach. So not only do students have the benefit of studying in a location that's considered to be the sunniest part of the UK, but they also are close to the beach, got all these part-time work opportunities, and also a really lovely student study campus experience as well. And these are just some pictures so you can see the campus, but you can see there's lots of historic, lovely, beautiful buildings. But I don't really think that anything in this slideshow can do justice to this university, because there is just, it's just so nice. I don't know how else to word it. It's just a really lovely part of the world, and it's a really lovely university campus.
It's really nice as well that you've got a real mix of some of those old classic historical buildings that date back hundreds of years, but you also have kind of on the Bognor Regis campus, you can see at the bottom there the new engineering building, very new cutting edge facilities, and you have that beautiful charming mixture of old historic along with new facilities and kind of all the practical hands-on stuff that students like.
Also really important to talk about, your students, so it's not a big university in terms of student size. And what that means is that everybody knows each other. So your students, when they come to study on campus, you know, will become part of that community, and they really like to celebrate the diversity of their students. So it means that your students will be able to, you know, share their culture and their experiences with a really welcoming student community and staff community on campus. And even within Chichester itself, like, it is so lovely for students to be able to study somewhere that's affordable to study. Accommodation in the area is affordable as well. It's picturesque, there's lots to do, there's really great opportunities for students, and the education that they will receive is just really high quality. So there's really nothing but positives to say about the University of Chichester overall. And I think that's a key thing. Like, if you know, students don't want to be lost in a sea of other students where they don't feel like they're important. Students want to feel like they are valued, and that is something this university definitely offers. As you would expect, they offer a range of programs at undergrad and postgrad level, everything from business and psychology through to criminology. They also do all the engineering programs. They do lots of hands-on subjects in creative industries, so things like computer animation, visual effects, all things like that. And additionally, they offer some really cool creative arts subjects. So dance being one of them, drama, music. It's a really, really vibrant community of students. So typically, what does a student need to get onto the program? Well, we're going to talk about entry requirements now for students, but at undergrad level, it's really simple. They're basically looking for very, very similar entry level requirements to what the University of East London are looking for to get onto undergrad programs. At postgrad, equally, they're looking for a lower second class honors program to get onto that. English, I mean, we can go through the English requirements and we can email the English requirements to you as well. But the idea is that there's a range of English language qualifications a student can take, and there is an IELTS waiver if the student has done their 12th standard within the last 5 years. So if they need 70% in their IELTS, in their standard 12th, but if they've got 70% in their standard 12th English, they don't need IELTS or any other English language qualification. If they do need to take an IELTS or an English language qualification, then they accept a whole range of different qualifications. They accept PTE, they accept TOEFL, they accept, of course, IELTS, the whole range. So lots of options for students to be able to do that. In terms of tuition fees, so really important. If you have students that are looking to study at the University of Chichester, which of course is what we're encouraging you to place your applications now, there is an international scholarship that's available for students to apply to, but it's only open until the end of this month. It's merit-based, and it's worth about £2,500 a year of study at postgrad, and it's about £1,500 at undergrad, but for each year of their study. You're looking at tuition fees of around £15,240. And they vary a little bit with postgrad, but they're mostly all in that range. And as you can see, accommodation-wise, you're looking at about £118 for private residence at the university and around the university. So it's not a terribly expensive option in terms of living costs. There's lots of options for students there.
There's lots of options as well for part-time jobs for students that are looking for part-time work to top up their funding as well. So Every time I've been to the university, if I've spoken with students there, a lot of them are working or have friends that are working and haven't found finding work to be challenging.
No.
So I think this bit links back to, as Ashley was discussing earlier, about how it's personalized teaching, it's hands-on, it's practical, it's engaging for students, there's one-to-one support, you learn by doing, you learn by different kind of teaching methods, and it's just, I think, a really nice environment for students to be learning in. Lots of international student support as well. So when students are new and they move to the UK, it has all that level of pastoral care. So if students need help opening a bank account, working out how to do a SIM card, they just need general kind of like, this is the first essay I've made for a UK university and I want someone to take a look at it and give me some advice. The university provide all of that level of support, and they're really there for students to make sure they're successful in their goals. Also a really big sporting university. So if you just want to go and use the facilities, or you want to watch live sport, or you want to take part, lots of opportunities for students there as well. So lots of different accommodation available. If students want to organize their own, or if IOA want to help students organize that, that's 100% an option for students. If they'd like to stay on the university campus again, lots of different profiles of different accommodation for students there. Lots of investment.
Just before we finish talking about facilities, because we've kind of covered all the facility information I think that everybody probably needs to hear about, I want to go back and talk to you a little bit about entry requirements if possible. So students who have got standard 12th from CBSE, from the Council for Indian School Certificate Examiners, CISCE, or who have done the Open Schooling Board, or state boards, including Delhi, Maharashtra, Chennai, Kolkata, Karnataka, 60% plus they need in their 12th to be able to get onto the program. If they've done the West Bengal board, you're looking at 55%. And generally any other state boards, they're looking at around 60% plus. Please note though, if students completed their qualifications in Haryana or Punjab and did Haryana and Punjab state boards, they are really scrutinized heavily on a case-by-case basis. Students who from Haryana and Punjab who've done central board examinations, no problems from that side, but that gives you an understanding. So it pretty much means you're looking at basically 60% or above in their standard 12th to be able to get onto it. That's UG programs. For PG programs, they want students with either a 3 or 4 year bachelor degree. 55% is what they're looking for in terms of entry criteria to get onto postgrad programs. And like we said earlier, if they've done their standard 12th English from either CBSE or CISCE or the open board, then or any state boards that we kind of already spoke about, 70% is the English language requirement within the last 5 years. And yeah, so that is basically the University of Chichester in a nutshell. Is there, Gaurav, is there anyone on the call today from Sri Lanka?
Yes, I think we have partners from Sri Lanka on the webinar today.
Great. So if anybody from Sri Lanka is looking to place an application for undergraduate programs at the University of Chichester, then they're basically looking for an average grade of C in the Sri Lankan General Certificate of Education, basically the A levels. They're looking for a C grade. If they want to go into postgrad level, they basically want a 70% average from a Sri Lankan bachelor degree.
And what about waivers for Sri Lanka? So what grade in English they look at?
That's a very good question. There isn't an English language waiver for Sri Lanka.
And because a lot of students from Sri Lanka, they also do international board qualification. So, and there is no waiver for them as well?
So if they've done IB and they've done IB English, then that's a very good question. And yes, generally IB English is accepted in lieu of.
Because I think most of the universities, they do waiver of for if it's an international board from Sri Lanka.
Yeah, so if they've done the international back, for example, then that would be different. But if they haven't, then they would have to make sure that they've got IELTS.
So there is no waiver for if a student has done Sri Lanka board, but if they've done international board, then we can obviously look at the waiver.
That's correct. Correct.
Perfect. And Ashley, can you also clarify on PTE requirement? I think for bachelor's, it is 51, not less than 51.
Yes, I can. Just give me 1 second and let me open that information. I will tell you all about that. Brad, you've asked me a question I don't have the answer to. 1 second. I do have the answer. Just need the link to work. Is there any other questions while I look this up for you?
Yeah, I think this is a part of the entry requirement, which needs to be clarified here because there is a question as well on PT requirement.
Yep, no problem. Okay. So for PTE, TOEFL, Pearson. So for undergrad programs, you're looking at around 50 for PTE requirement for a direct undergrad entry with, again, no subtest below 50. Postgrad, you're looking at around 58.
And 58, not less than 58.
Correct.
Okay. Perfect. So as you said, Ashley, so there is a question from Uma Bhatia. And so you said we will be accepting students with CBSE board, and the waiver is on CBSE board, and there is no waiver on Punjab and Haryana board, right?
That's correct. No waiver for Punjab and Haryana, but pretty much every other board there's a waiver for.
So if a student is from Punjab, for example, and is studied from CBSE 12th standard, so it's good to go with waiver, right?
Correct. Correct, because they would use the English from CBSE.
Perfect. Right. So Khushi is talking about the process, so how does the precast interview happens? So what is the turnaround time for the offer letters once the application is processed? So if you can please clarify on that.
So it's a little bit longer than NCUK. So that's the first thing to say, but it's not as long as most universities take. So that's really important to note as well. So the process is the application is placed and it goes through very similar pre-screening call to what we described before with NCUK. And then the application is placed to the university, and the university have assured us they will turn their offers around in not more than 4 days maximum. So that's what they've promised us, 4-day turnaround maximum.
Right. So Khushi, the offer letter turnaround time after pre-screen is 4 days, 4 working days. And once the student gets the offer, there is an initial deposit for I think £2,000 to £3,000 that will be mentioned on the offer letter. And after student pays that deposit, the student has to go through a the pre-CAS interview. And then for the CAS, the student has to pay 70% deposit on the tuition fees. I think it's £10,000, Ashley, what they look at.
That's correct.
Okay.
So it's £10,000 for CAS release in total.
For CAS release. Okay. So there's a question, do they offer waiver for Gujarat State Board?
Yes, 70%.
Priyanka will look at 70% in terms of students from Gujarat who are looking for a waiver as to study at University of Chichester. Priyanka looks excited with this news.
I'm excited for Priyanka about this news. In fact, I think everybody's excited about this. Is there any other questions at all? So I think we covered.
What is the deadline to accept applications for University of Chichester?
Yeah, good question. So technically the deadline for deposit is the end of July. So everything needs to be done before the end of July. So what I would say is really we want to be taking applications now up until about the end of I would say week 2 in July maximum. But don't forget, if you have students that want to apply for a scholarship, they need to make sure that they apply now before the end of June. Otherwise, they will lose the chance to apply for scholarship.
Perfect. So the question from Prince, is the initial deposit refundable? Prince, yes. The deposit is only refundable in case the student does not clear the pre-CAS interview. If a student withdraws, then you have to follow the refund policy of University of Chichester.
Correct. But generally speaking, the university will always refund fees as long as the student didn't fail on the basis of fraud.
Yeah.
So I think this is pretty common across all universities. So as long as there's no fraud, generally speaking, the university will always refund.
Perfect. The last question, Ashley, I know you're getting late and we have already crossed the time limit. So, but it looks like an important question. Suppose a student who has not got 70% in 12th English, but has done a bachelor's from University of Madras, which is a highly ranked level 1 university, or so can a student apply for waiver on the grounds of memorandum of instruction that student has studied throughout English?
So we'd have to make a case to the university to be able to do that. Generally speaking, no. But as a general rule, I would say no. But if we can try and put forward a strong case to the university for certain students on a case-by-case basis.
Right. So I think we have sorted out nearly all the questions from all our partners today. And so before we end this session, I would request David, if you can please have a golden words from you for all the partners and how you can support them or they can support in terms of recruitment and how we all can work together.
Yeah, I'd say that I think at Malvern International, we appreciate the kind of, working with our agent partners and how it's, they do a lot of heavy lifting, and how we can support them to do their jobs is so important to us. That kind of, from our perspective, I know, Ashley and I, we understand the responsibility we have in terms of quick replies, clear answers, helping you do the things you need for your job. So if there's ever anything we can do, we'll try and work with you to get things done.
Right. Thank you, David. And before I put on to Ashley, I want to let all of you know that Ashley will be traveling to India in the month of July, around 10th of July. And the condition for doing on the spot at your offices is 10 students paying and applying for visa for September intake before 10th of July. So you all need to be quick. And if you are really looking forward to invite Ashley or at your office to meet your students directly, and up to you, Ashley. And after that, we'll end the session.
Yes, so thank you very much for your time today and for asking all of your amazing questions. I look forward to being able to meet you in your offices. I look forward to welcoming your applications and your students on campus. But mostly what I would do is reiterate what David said, which is that we're here to help support you. And we are here to work really closely with Gaurav and the whole team at Infinite Opportunities Abroad to make sure that you can place your students. And that's really important. We do not want to mess around with what is effectively your passion and your pride. We want to make sure that your students get to where they want to go. And we are really passionate about both the NCUK program that we spoke to you about and also about the University of Chichester as well. So that's it from us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ashley. But before you leave, the last question, because as you said, for masters, the Chichester look at 58, not less than 58. But if we compare IELTS equivalent, 6.5, not less than 5.5. So most of the universities are accepting at 56, not less than 51 or 52. So can we try applications with Chichester, something 58, not less than 52 or 53?
You can certainly try. We will ask the question of the university. It's quite, we're in the process of trying to get some of the English language requirements altered, but it's not a super quick process. So for September, we're probably not likely to get the official entry requirements changed, but it is something we are looking at.
Right, perfect. So I think for September, let's focus on 58, not less than 58. And as soon as we hear back from Ashley and Ashley hear back from the university, we will get back to you. So thank you, Ashley, and thank you, David, for being here today and supporting all the partners here. Thank you, all the partners. Thank you, all the attendees for attending the event. And we are looking forward to work closely. Please be in touch and start sending the applications. We still have time. July is the deadline for deposit for University of Chichester. And we're accepting applications for NCUK till August, but apply as soon as possible. One request, don't only look at 40% in 12th standard, even a student with 60% is eligible for NCUK diploma. So we are looking at great students because they're looking at great pathways in future. So thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, and have a great evening. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Bye.
Everyone, great to see you. Bye.